Welcome back to another session of our free monthly event called Lead Better. Lead Better is our virtual experience where we share in different leadership topics that are designed to help you pivot into your next. If you're interested in attending this event live, you can head over to www.tpenow.com and register for this event. Also, we also offer Lead Betters in Spanish, and so be on the lookout for those events on our website as well. Let's enjoy the session.
Are you where are you attending from? What state are you in? What city are you in? And it'll help also too. Do you work for Chick-fil-A or do you work for somewhere else? Just for context, myself and the other coaches here, we have extensive experience in Chick-fil-A, and we love it when we have people who are all from Chick-fil-A here. And we can kind of tailor that conversation more specific and gear it more specific to a Chick-fil-A audience. And if we have some other people in the mix, we'll make sure we accommodate to you guys as well. Again, I said my name is Alex. I have the pleasure of leading this group of remarkable coaches. If you guys are a part of Leader Square, I do a lot of the posting and communicating there. I also anchor our podcast here that we produce, where we bring in guests to try to help people share their story, and hopefully something gets said to be able to help people get better and move on. Now that we started a little late, I'm going to try to do my very best to advance the conversation. And today we're going to be talking about systems and processes. And before we jump completely into systems and processes, Javonna and I want to have a conversation around people. If you've been, again, following along with us, we did emotional intelligence part 1 and part 2, whereas Neff and Javonna graciously led us through a conversation where we talked about the core components of emotional intelligence. But we want to start there a little bit as a follow-up to that conversation to warm us up to our bigger conversation today. Javonna, you'll kick us off there.
All right. So also, Neff is going to put in the comments for us today, what are the current issues you're facing within the people area of your business? So around systems and processes, what are like the biggest issues that you're having? Because we want to be able to answer those questions. So this lead better is a little off the cuff. Normally we have a topic and we're kind of sticking to that topic, but we really wanted to get feedback from you guys on what you want to hear around systems and processes. So if you would, in the comments for me, go ahead and put questions around really the current issues you're facing around the people area of the business. And the reason I'm saying people is because I told Alex, I said, hey, I think when we're doing systems and processes, we can kind of make this a three-part series. And so we're going to focus on people today. And I'll tell you why in just a second. But if you could put that in the questions for me, we want to answer your questions. We do have some questions that we will answer if nobody gives us any feedback on systems and processes around people that you want to hear. But if you could, for me, in the comments, go ahead and put those questions, and then we'll start with those before we answer anything else. So I kind of wanted to go back before we even talk about systems and processes and talk about emotional intelligence. So if you don't get anything else from today, hear this part. People lead systems and processes. People. Okay, people aren't perfect. I'm not perfect. Neff's not perfect. Alex isn't perfect. Probably some of you at the bottom, y'all aren't perfect. Some of you might be perfect, but I for sure know I'm not perfect. And so to me, the key to making sure that your systems and processes run really well is having the right people in your organization. I don't know where I heard this quote. I've told a couple of people recently, I'm like, I don't know if somebody else made this up. I don't know if I made it up. I don't know if it was on a podcast, but the quote is, really great systems and processes with mediocre people will not be successful. So you can come today and we can give you some tips and tricks on how to make some really great systems and processes. But if you don't have great people, it's not going to work, because people are what lead your systems and processes. The second part of that quote is, but if you have really great people with mediocre systems and processes, they will be successful. And really great people love to tweak mediocre systems and processes. And so I really want you to go back and listen to those emotional intelligence part 1 and part 2, because the first thing you need with systems and processes, 1, you need really great people to run those systems and processes. So today, since we're going to do a 3-part series, today we're going to focus on the people aspect, but I'm going to go through critical success factors of a business, and it's any business. So if you're not with Chick-fil-A and you're like, man, I don't think this is for me, hold up, don't move, because this is for you. Because in any business, doesn't matter what business it is, there are 5 critical success factors of a business. The first one is leadership. That's the centerpiece of the puzzle. Then it goes into people, quality and customer experience, sales and brand growth, and financial stewardship. So those are the 5 puzzle pieces of the business. And we're really going to focus on the people aspect today as we talk about systems and processes. But before we talk about individual questions around systems and processes, Alex is going to talk about factors to consider when creating systems and processes, so that he can kind of give us the backbone of the conversation before we get into the actual like meat of it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Javonna. Yes, and I felt like this is really important to talk about, because I've seen time and time again, and I know we've got a lot of Chick-fil-A people on the line. I've seen time and time again where, hey, I might go to store A, B, or C and see something that I like that they're doing and not really understand fully the context in which the system was developed, or their system may not fit where they are from a volume standpoint. So number one, I want you to understand, when we're talking the things that we're going to be talking about, and the things you might hear from other people as you continue on this journey of developing great systems and processes, some things will work for your restaurant, some things won't. And you have to understand and have the discernment and the wisdom to know, hey, is this a yes for our business right now, or is this a yes for a different season in our business? Because I've seen too many times where you see something that you like in the marketplace as far as a system is concerned, you try to implement it into your organization, and you're either spending too much labor on a particular process, or you're stretching people too thin because they're trying to do something that the business isn't equipped to do. So number one, understand that every system doesn't work in every organization. You have to assess what talent you have, and assess how that's going to impact your level to be efficient in your organization. Can you do whatever it is that you're putting together? Is it replicatable? And is it repeatable? I've seen a lot of times, particularly, I just want to shout out to somebody real quick. Christian Artist has 21 years of Chick-fil-A experience. And so I'm assuming if a person with this level of experience, when it comes down to looking at a system or process, thinking about certain things may come easier to you than the person who's been in leadership for 6 months. And so when you're developing systems, be clear in what you're trying to accomplish, and understand that there's an acronym that we used to use. It's KISS. Keep it simple. Keep it super simple. And so when you're thinking about those systems in your organization, yes, I heard someone really recently say, they work to try to make things just a centimeter better, and that is exactly what we should do. In addition to that, just making sure that we don't overcomplicate what we're attempting to do in our organization. So those are the few things that I just want to make sure that you guys understand. Like, we're going to have a conversation, and this conversation is going to be coming from, I think we do approximately $45 million worth of volume between the stores that we represent here on the line. And so that might not fit for your organization, the things that we're talking about. You have to figure out what can you take from this, and how can you implement it in a way that's going to be the most beneficial to your organization. So that's all I have on that piece of the puzzle. And so we've got some good questions in the chat, Javonna and Neff, and definitely want to be able to start talking about those things. And I'm gonna take the first question from Christian Artist. And I hope I'm saying that right. Creating buy-in when systems change due to volume needs. Team wants to go back to what they are accustomed to. How do we? And I'll kick that over to Javonna and Neff if you want to chime in on that as well. But how do you guys create buy-in around new systems? And I'll offer my answer whenever after you guys go.
So I think this is, and Kristen, if you want to pop on, you don't have to show yourself if you don't want to, but you can for sure turn your mic on if you want to and talk to us a little bit. But I think the first thing that I would say about creating buy-in when systems change due to volume needs, to me, you have to create a culture of change. Like, that is key. And in Chick-fil-A specifically, we're ever changing. volume is ever changing, staff is ever changing. And so I honestly think you've got to create some accountability system where, and this is one of the questions that we actually had written was around accountability. I think there needs to be some accountability system around when change is created. How do you make sure that the team members are buying into what you want and where you're headed? And I think, Alex said it very clearly, like, keep it simple. Keep it super simple when change is made. And don't expect that just communicating it on whatever communication platform that you have is going to actually fully create the change. I think that's one thing that we struggle with in our organization is like, they're like, but I posted it. And I'm like, yes, you did post it. That is correct. But did you talk about it? Did you make sure that the team member to your left and your right knows it and understands the why behind it? And so what you communicate, how you communicate, and making sure that you keep that change simple is going to get the buy-in of the team for sure.
And just to add to that, I was at a leadership conference maybe a few several years ago now, and one of the things the lady said to me really stuck out to me, and it really kind of challenged me a little bit as it relates to communication. I put in the chat, how many times do you think you have to say something until someone actually hears what you're saying?
And I think it's even more than hearing. Are they listening?
Yeah, well, you're listening. How many, just to entertain me, how many times do you think you need to say something to an individual before they actually hear and listen to what you're saying? So I see 5 times, twice. Anybody else? One more person put something in the chat for me. Just so we can have 3 and get a nice odd number there. If you don't, that's okay. So 5 is close. The number that was thrown out there was 7. So you have to say something 7 times to an individual before it sticks. Now, here's the deal. If we're all honest, we probably know that that's true when it comes down to our parents, to our teachers, to our coaches. Before we became in leadership, how many times did someone have to tell you to close gaps before you actually got it? How many times did if you ever worked in kitchen, how many times were you told to put the tips facing in? Well, that's before. That's old school right there. I'm kind of dating myself a little bit. But how many times were you told certain things about the job before it became a light bulb moment for you? And I think sometimes for us who are leaders, when we cross that leadership threshold, when we cross that, when we go from team member to leader, or we go from leader to director, we forget about what was our attention span as a team member. And most organizations, unless you're extremely top heavy, there's a whole lot more leaders than there are. There's a whole lot more team members than there are leaders. And so the need for the leadership team to be echoing what the initiative is or what's going on, I think it's going to play a big role in creating buy-in. And it sounds really simple, right? It sounds extremely simple, like, hey, just say it more times, maybe that'll help. But literally, though, in today's age, when we're in the TikTok era, where everything is 6 to 7 seconds, 15 seconds, jam-packed, rapid pace, retention of information is a whole lot lower than what it used to be. So when we just rely on posting, and we maybe don't leverage the email my team function, and we don't email, or we don't leverage in-store coaching, or we don't leverage X, Y, and Z. Literally think about how many times have you, in terms of when you're rolling out a new initiative, how many times do you think your team has heard from you as it relates to that initiative, outside of the one time when you announced it, and then the second time when you got frustrated when people wasn't doing it? Let's keep it, let's just kind of make sure that we understand that, hey, we've got to, it might seem repetitive, but I think that would be a core component of it. Also, too, when you think about one of Chick-fil-A's core values is that we pursue what's next. And so if we're creating systems and we're creating processes that is a reflection of us pursuing what's next, and I think if you communicate that to your team, I think one of the biggest things, especially at the team member level, is how equating what the system of the new system is and how it benefits them, because a lot of times, particularly now where we are with talent across the country, people are looking at, well, how does this benefit me? How do I get, or how do we as a group benefit from it? And as long as you have a clear line from whatever the system is that you're trying to get accomplished to how it benefits them, I think that helps too. Again, I think sometimes we sit in the seat of leadership and we look at things from the lens of the experience that we have, and we forget that the people that we're tasked to lead don't have the experience, two may not be as bought into what it is that we're attempting to do. So Christian, does that canvas that question, or did you or is there a different way you wanted us to kind of tackle that?
No, you guys answered it really well. I appreciate that.
Okay,
I
it is
would
our
say
pleasure.
one thing that Alex just said to Kristen that I was like, and this is something that I've been working on in my organization, is communicating to the team member that any changes that we make are, one, in the benefit of the team member, and two, in the benefit of the guest. So what does it look like for, and I'll give an example of this. So, we were having some issues with our breading table, not breading, enough chicken. And I finally went to the breader and I looked at them and I said, hey, if you'd bread a little bit more chicken, you wouldn't have to work so hard. And they were like, oh, you're right. I'm at, like, instead of breading 8 fillets, let me follow the lean system because it's saying 10. I'm like, you're having to bread more batches and I want your job to be easier. I went to a leader last week and I said, hey, when I come back here and I'm helping y'all with systems and processes, my job is to make your job easier. And so she looked at me and her eyes got really big and she said, oh, that makes a lot of sense. Like, she realized that I wasn't coming back there to tell them all the things they were doing wrong or how they needed, like, I was there to support her and help make her job easier, which in return, when her job's easier, our guests are getting better quality food because she's not as stressed out. They're not trying to, move faster or, like, I'm looking at the systems and processes and I'm saying, okay, how can this benefit my team? And then how can this benefit the guest? And when I am coaching and training on a new system or process or a tweak in a system and process, I'm communicating to the team, hey, I'm doing this because I want your job to be easier. Hey, I'm doing this because I want the guest experience to be better and I want them to come back so that you can have more hours. Like, you got to pull it to the team member and to the guest. And I guarantee you they won't be as resistant to change. So if you could really lead with those two whys, Kristen, I think that would be key of like, hey, we're moving, something as basic as like moving the ketchup, right? Hey, we're moving the ketchup because we want it to be closer to you so you don't have to move as far. So when you need to fill up your ketchup bin, like, you can do that really quickly and you can get back to bagging. So if you communicate how it's going to make their job easier and then what the guest satisfaction as well, that's really going to help you create a culture of change and your team will really be bought into the changes you're making.
So, just to speak a little bit on that, we can do all those things. We can communicate. We can, we can communicate the why, how it benefits them. But the other side of that too is, do we have the right people in the right seat? Are they the right people for the organization? Because if they're not the right people, we can do all these things and we can try all these different methods. But at the end of the day, it's not going to work out. And it's not a system issue. At that point, it becomes a people issue. And knowing how to assess when it's a people issue versus a system issue is very crucial to be able to get to the root cause of the problems that we have.
And Neff, that's good that you say that because when we're talking about a system that's not working, so we can use the breading system again, but like if the system is not working, your first thing is you're like, okay, is this a people or a system issue? And I constantly ask myself that question because we can be making changes and changes and changes and changes and still get the same result. And you're like, oh, I think it's a people issue. Like, I think that I have the wrong people doing the wrong things. And so therefore all the changes I made were kind of in vain because, it's not producing the result. But in the end of the day, I needed to either let a leader go or I needed to, move a leader from, the food area to the customer experience area up front or whatever. Like, you've got to assess, we call it RPRS, right people, right seat. Is it an RP issue? Is it an RS issue? Is it a system issue? And you can really like drive home in those three areas what is the real issue so that you're not really just chasing your tail, because y'all know what it feels like. Who in here, and you can like raise your hand or you can put in the chat one, who in here has felt like for years you've chased your tail on certain issues and come to find out you were chasing the wrong issue and therefore you just made change after change after change after change and you literally did not get anywhere.
So Abram, you want to speak to that? I don't mean to put you on the spot.
No, sure thing. Yeah. So one of the things that plagued me, I felt like for years, was just this idea of the window and whether or not to run the screen where everything comes in order and you run out to payment, or do you tender everything out at the order point and you just kind of send the orders out and into the fray, if you will. And so, yeah, the thing that we had to really come up with was, again, did we have the right people in the right spot? And it was a mix of both. It was both. The system was flawed, so we had to really do some work to analyze and understand what was the root cause. Um, and it was a training issue. And then also, we didn't have the right people executing it. We didn't have people that were passionate about drive-through and moving fast, working in the drive-through. They were more passionate about making connections with guests.
Mhm.
And don't get me wrong, you want to be able to do that in the drive-through, but you have to use a different set of skills when it comes to production. And that's kind of what was needed. And so it's ongoing. I think as people change, as Drake says in one of his songs, people change, feelings change. We have to be ready to make sure that we have the right people in the right spots at any given time in the business.
Thank you, Christian. Were you raising your hand to add, or just because Javonna stoked to say raise your hand?
Just because she's stoked, but Abram kind of hit it spot on. I mean, his example is pretty similar to mine. So I don't have any more to add.
Okay, great. And so, and I don't want to belabor too much time on this question. That was a fantastic question. The only thing I will add to that is, and this is going to be a running theme in all of these questions, is we work in multi-generational workplaces. And so for those of us who have been around for 20 years, the temperament, the way we go about communicating things are much different than what the new team member is experiencing too. So just wanted to add that in. All right, Abram, you put it into the chat. Developing people as quickly as the business is growing. Is that a question that you want to throw out to us? Like how are we doing that? And if that's the case, then we can definitely to work on that or speak into some of the things
that was definitely there's a pain point we've had is for us in a 4 years period, we went from doing 6.8 to where we're doing 11.5 this year. So we've had a lot of growth, and sometimes it just feels like, man, we've got more problems than we have people to figure them out.
Okay. So Javonna and Neff, y'all wanna start the conversation there?
So I love this question, by the way, Abram. I saw that you posted this, and when he went to Kristen's question first, which I was like, great, we'll answer that one. I was like, I hope we get to developing people as a business. So I think one thing that you need to think about, and we're all leaders on here, so I'm throwing this out to you as leaders, is that RPRS issue is, do you have the right people in the right seats? And then I think the second part to that is, do you have the right people? Like, let's go with that part. Like, do you have the right people in your organization to lead you to what's next? And I know that you've probably all heard that quote, like, what got you here won't get you there. And I think, Abram, you're probably feeling that in your business currently. Like, what got you 6.4 million or 6.8, I can't remember what you said, 6 point something million to over 11 million. The leaders you had for that are not going to get you to where you want to go. So I'm going to speak a little bit into this. And actually, our restaurants are in we're currently in a weird situation. So I think this is going to be helpful. So we just hired 2 director level positions outside the restaurant, which is not something that we normally do. And really it comes from the fact that we want to have a director level position from open to close. And currently we're sitting at a director level position 8 to 8. And so, one thing I was talking to my operator about it, and I was like, hey, we've got to start to look to the outside to get the right people. And typically, and I think most Chick-fil-A's, I'm 24 years into Chick-fil-A, you grow them from within. Like, you're like, okay, this is a great team member. Okay, we're going to make them a leader, or, we're going to push them to what's next. But we were finding in our organization that we couldn't find the qualities we were looking for. So when we look at different leadership level positions, we write out 3 to 5 qualities for each of those levels. of leadership. So what are the 3 to 5 things that we're looking for in that level of leadership? And then we start looking at the people we have in our organization, and we're like, okay, do we have people with those 3 to 5 characteristics? And we just hired 2 directors from the outside, and it literally last two weeks ago. They started last week. And the key thing I think for them is that we're pushing them to earn their stripes first. So they have to learn every single position, just like any team member. And so we've kind of built out a 6 to 8 week program for both of them. And they'll be like leading director of operations in a little bit different capacity. But we've created a system for them to get trained in about 8 weeks. Now, will they be fully, yes, I know everything about Chick-fil-A in the next 8 weeks? No, because I'm 24 years in and I still don't know everything about Chick-fil-A. But I think what you got to do is push yourself to think outside the box, because a lot of times when it says developing people as quickly as the business is growing, I think we've got to do something different than what we've done in the past with Chick-fil-A. And to me, I mean, every director that we've pushed in the last we're multi-unit now, but we've been multi-unit for 2 years. Alex has been like 7 or 8 years, but every director we've had has grown from within, but it takes about a year and a half to get them to that director level position. And so we've created 2 programs. I have one that's called Flip Future Leader Program, that can take a team member to a team leader in 12 weeks. And we use that as one of the programs to train people, but then also this new director program that we're running, which takes about 8 weeks. And really, honestly, guys, on this chat, if you want more information on those, I would totally be willing to share some of the documentation that goes along with that. So if you want to put your email on the chat, I'll get your email and I can send you some more information on those processes. But I think you have to start thinking outside of the box and thinking differently than you did before, because we're at a state, as the business has grown over the last 5 to 10 years. And the way we were developing 5 years ago, pre-COVID, cannot be the way we're pushing to develop our leaders today. We got to think differently. We got to define what those 3 to 5 characteristics are. And for me, Abram, that would be the first thing that I would do is, what are the 3 to 5 characteristics you're looking for a trainer? What are the 3 to 5 characteristics you're looking for a team leader or shift leader? What are the 3 to 5 characteristics you're looking for as a director? And then you start to measure up your leaders that you currently have in those roles. And you say, do they fit or do they not? And then you create an accountability 90-day plan for them to work through, so that you can make sure that when you bring even new leaders into those roles, that the current leaders you have measure up to what you're looking for in those roles. Because we've seen it time and time again where we have a leader who's not up to the standard that we want our leaders to be up to. And so then a new leader comes in and they're looking at that other leader and they're like, but so-and-so's not, your expectation is here, but they're not meeting that expectation. And so I really think that you have to get those 3 to 5 written down, measure, do your current leaders have those 3 to 5, and what's it going to take to get those leaders to those 3 to 5. And a lot of it is going to be hip to hip training, meaning you're working alongside that leader, making sure that they're ready to push the business day in and day out. Because point blank, Alex, Neff, me, Ashley, who's on this call, I know all you leaders, we can't be there 16 hours a day. So we've got to push our leaders to see the business bigger than the way they currently see it, or you won't reach the results that you want to reach.
So,
well said. Okay, go ahead, Neff.
So something else is, and some of y'all said this, but a lot of us, and through COVID, experienced a spike in sales. We've gone from a couple millions to several millions of dollars in revenue. And so with that comes a lot of challenges. And so you're having to focus on a lot of different systems on how to change things, how to make sure that we have capacity to produce for the demand. And so we can overlook sometimes the people side of the business, and we forget to check in with the people that we have. And so sometimes we do have people in our organization that are capable of being in the roles that we are looking to fill. But because we've been so busy in other areas and we don't have a good system, whether that's quarterly reviews, whether that's a monthly check-in, we haven't structured that part to set us up for success, for us to be able to bring in leaders that are already in our organization that could potentially fill the needs that we're looking for.
And Neff, you took the words right out of my mouth, because I want to say, and I love when we're tracking and on the same page like that, because I was going to say, to just echo what Neff says. What is your culture around the 101s, the one-on-ones in your organization? I tend to feel like we've done a good job at this. I think last year, we were able to canvas the entire team on one-on-ones to be able to sit down and understand what they're going through. When you do that, not only do you create an opportunity to put positive deposits in the team members that you're dealing with, you give them an avenue to be able to talk about the things that they are experiencing and they are seeing. And then more importantly, you get a chance to be able to see if an individual is thinking in a direction that you want them to think in, and you can find that leader that you possibly are looking for if you execute one-on-ones. Like, I would challenge each of you guys, if you're not doing the one-on-ones now, I mean, of course, you got to connect with does that align with your labor goals, and can you guys create some budget for it? But I would challenge you to try to do 2 to 3 one-on-ones a week or a month, to just sit down and say what's going on with you personally and professionally, and how can you help them see start their journey of leadership through that one-on-one. Because like I said, that you'll be surprised the perspective of the team member when we facilitate good conversations. Now, doing a great one-on-one is more than just sitting down and having a conversation. Being intentional about the questions that you're asking, being intentional about the results that you're looking to drive in that 20 to 30 minutes that you're spending with the team member. But I think that's important. And then number 2, I think, and I want to, tell a small story, kind of going back to 2008.
Hold on, Alex, real quick.
Yes, go ahead.
So on that one-on-one, do you think that you could potentially put in Leader Square this week a flow for a good one-on-one, so that these people who are listening today, for one, they can join Leader Square, which is our platform for you to, it's free, and it's kind of like a social media for leadership. But if Alex could post a good one-on-one flow, because we can't do good one-on-ones unless we have a good flow of what that should look like. And so I think, Alex, since you said y'all have been successful at that, could you post that on Leader Square this week so that they could get some information on that?
Of course. Okay, Abram, you put what tiers of leadership do you prioritize one-on-ones? So for me, I would say this, and I don't know what your current communication mechanisms are, but so we use Google Meet, and we have different groups, and where you have our core leaders in one group, then it funnels down to directors. Then each store has their own leadership group, and then the team members have their group. So a lot of our organic conversation throughout the day happens within the director groups and the leadership groups. So I tend to feel like there's not as much of a need to prioritize the one-on-ones with those individuals that you work the closest with, because you're already spending the time with them. So I would prioritize on the newer management, making sure that they are number one, do they feel equipped and supported doing what they're doing, and then you can kind of get their perspective on what's going on. But I'll be honest with you, Abram, some of my best conversations have come from team members who's worked for us for 6 months, like that 3 to 6 to 9 month range, because they're new, they don't have a whole lot of skin in the game, and their perspective is as real as it gets. Like they're telling you the truth about your organization. They're not afraid to kind of say, hey, well, I know y'all did this, but I really don't understand why y'all did that. Like, they're a little bit more honest than a team member who's been around a little bit longer. And I gain a lot of perspective on what we're doing, what could be working, and what's and how can we move forward. So I hope that answers that question, Abram. But I was going to just say, I remember in 2008, in our area, they opened up a store maybe 20 minutes away from us. And at the time, I was like the newly named GM. And I was working with a guy, good friend of mine, still a good friend of mine now. And he ended up, I think me and him were kind of in competition. I hate to use that word, but we were in competition for the position. And then my operator gave me the GM position. And when that store opened up a little bit ways away, he left and went to that store. Well, that same year, I think we had 2 other managers graduate. Another manager went off to college. I mean, that year our team was decimated, and I felt like I remember telling myself, I'm never going to be in this position again where, hey, good things are happening for people. That's why they're moving on. But it weakened our bench. And so when I would just challenge you to say, when you're talking about seeing and shaping the future and continued leadership development, what does your leadership depth look like? And I think you have to create a culture. I know Javonna spoke to it earlier, a culture of change, but you have to have a culture of continuous development. And I think when you facilitate those great one-on-ones, that is the seed for you to be able to identify what your leadership pipeline look like. In theory, that one-on-one could be your initial soft interview for the people who you are putting or wanting to get into leadership. It doesn't necessarily have to be framed that way, but during the course of the conversation, you'll get a feeling to go, hey, well, this person cares enough. I think that we have a tool, whether that's one of the tools Javonna's talking about or whatever you guys use for leadership development, so they'll be able to take this individual from where they are in this conversation, in this one-on-one, to getting into that pipeline. So I hope that canvases that question. That was an excellent question.
So
Go
I'm
ahead.
thinking too for Abram, just what you said around like what tiers, and this is kind of a little bit different, but I think it's key, and with what Alex is saying, to have a 30-day evaluation with a new team member, and then also a 90-day evaluation with a new team member. And so they get that touch in 30 days in, they get that touch in 90 days in. The way that we've kind of done it, and we've changed it over the years, but the first check-in is with the development director at 30 days. And that kind of speaks to the training process. Like, how was the training process? What things could we do better as an organization? What things do you feel comfortable with? What things do you not feel comfortable with? And for us, we use a Google form, and the development director fills that out. And then takes that information, tweaks our training process, gets more training for that team member if they feel like they need more training. And then, just a connection point in the beginning. And then 90 days in, when they should be fully trained and should be working in the business and not feel uncomfortable, then they have another check-in where they're kind of giving more deep conversation around what's your next steps? Like, have you thought about a leadership position? And so I think that having those built-in check-ins are really, really important. And you can call them one-on-ones, but those built-in check-ins with your team members are really, really important to see where your business is at. I love that he said that's kind of the unfiltered. Like, I call it Chick-fil-A unfiltered. It's like they don't really know, it's from a perspective that us who worked in Chick-fil-A for a really long time, or the leaders who, were training them, who've been there 2 years, or, like you get that raw information that you're like, man, I didn't even see that. And so I think that that's really important to have those like key one-on-ones with new team members and partially trained team members.
Definitely excellent response. Now we got a question in here from Jackie, and I like this question because I think this question is going to close us out. And I know that I think this question we're going to have some spirited conversation on. I feel like. So Jackie put, many of our systems become people dependent versus system dependent. Then when people leave or move out of the position, the system falls. So I'm assuming we want to talk about how do we transition our systems from being people dependent to making sure that they stay system dependent. And so I know for a fact that my friends over in Baytown have a lot of dialogue on this one. So I was going to try to take one to lead it, but I was like, no. I would love for, again, Javonna and Nev to initiate the conversation here around this area, because I know we're going to have maybe some slight differences in how we approach this here. And again, before you answer, Javonna, just because we might have difference in opinion on how we go about it, like I said on the front end of this, you have to understand what works for your organization and what's going to make the needle move for you. So go ahead, Javonna.
All right. So I love this question, Jackie. And Jackie, if you want to unmute and give us more context, feel free to do that. And I'll watch the screen to see if you unmute. But I have really worked over the last year to work towards our systems being system dependent, not people dependent. One thing that I think is really important is that, and this may sound crazy, but you have to have SOPs pretty much for everything in every area of the business. So you need standard operating procedures, because when somebody leaves, and y'all know what happens is when somebody leaves and they leave their area unfinished, and you're like, I don't even know where they're at. I actually had to fire a team member a year and a half ago. And when I had to fire that team member, it took me a long time or it was a leader, I'm sorry, fire leader. It took me a long time to get their system back up and running because they weren't following the standard operating procedures that we had set in place, which were really, really important because they were they were training procedures. And so we weren't running a well-oiled machine because we weren't training properly. And so I've had my top level leaders really work on standard operating procedures so that if they go on vacation, it's easy for one of us to pick up. And we've really structured our organization in such a way that there's always somebody above them that should know how to do the process, or there's somebody next to them that knows how to do the process. So you need, and this is a key point to take away, you need at least 3 people that know how to run each system and process so that you can actually go on vacation. I know that's a thing. Like, how many of you, and I want you to put a 1 in the chat, how many of you have gone on vacation and your phone has been ringing or text messages have been coming in because people don't know what to do while you're out? And I want everybody to please answer that question. And I see them coming in. That is a key indicator that your business is people dependent, not system dependent. And so you need those standard operating procedures, and you need the functionality and responsibility around each individual person, what they're responsible for, what their function is. And there needs to be at least 3 people who can do whatever it is, whether it's, and I'm going to speak to some systems right now that are really people dependent that I see a lot of the time. Payroll. You got one person in your business that does it. You know, Javonna wants to go out of town and she can't because, it's Monday and I need to do payroll. So on vacation, I got my laptop out and I'm completing payroll. And so I've actually tested this recently in the last 3 months, and Neff can speak to this. I'll let him tell you the story, but I've actually tested this because Neff is our executive operations. But I've tested this and I said, Neff, I want you to go on vacation and I don't want you to answer your phone for 5 days. Do not answer your phone because I need us to see if the system that we're running is people dependent or system dependent. And he can take it from there.
Which story are we talking about?
You went on vacation recently. I mean, was it like 3 months ago?
Oh yeah, everything's great.
And there was no phone calls, no text messages.
I've taken multiple vacations in the past. I've been with Chick-fil-A for about 10 years now. And it's always nonstop text message on Slack, on GroupMe, like all the different communication platforms you can think of. We've had them, and we all get messages through them. And this past vacation was probably the first time that I was able to not interact with somebody from work about work. I texted about the vacation and how it's going and stuff, and sending pictures back and forth, but nothing about work. And I think just as we've worked on clearing up what every person is accountable for, what their ownership looks like in their area, and what the accountability looks like when that ownership either happens or doesn't happen, has been really awesome to be able to help us to be able to be free. And at the end of the day, like as leaders, we want to be able to have freedom whenever we step out of the restaurant. We don't want to have to feel like we're always on call 24/7. That's just not healthy as a leader. It's not healthy for your household. It's not healthy for you as an individual. And so we're going to keep living like that if we do not set boundaries. But we've first got to make sure that our communication has been clear.
Yeah. And so that ownership. So I recently saw a diagram, and I don't have it on me, but I can post it in Leader Square. I'll post it in Leader Square tonight. And y'all can hold me to that. But I saw this diagram, and it was a circle diagram, and it was the outer circle was ownership. The second inner circle was responsibility, and the third inner circle was accountability. And I think that we've got to start to think like that. Is like, okay, does everybody know what their 3 to 5 pieces of ownership of the business are in their role? So you take those 3 to 5 pieces of ownership, and then you create responsibility around it. And then the third piece to that is accountability. They're accountable to whatever it is. And when they go on vacation, to me, so like if Neff goes on vacation, I am now responsible because I am over Neff to make sure, and I communicate with him, hey Neff, you're going on vacation. Is there anything that you've left undone or you need me to work on? And we communicate about it. And then he communicates with the people below him, and everybody works in their ownership piece because we all own different parts of it. We work in our ownership piece to make sure that all things are accounted for at the end of the day. And so I really think the key to it is having standard operating procedures, and then also that functionality, ownership, accountability piece is super key. And I guarantee you, just test the system out, go on vacation, like set a good system up, make sure that everyone knows what their ownership piece is, what they're responsible for, and how they're going to be held accountable. Go on vacation and you say, okay, I want you to fully own X, Y, and Z, and just see if you can actually leave. Because if you can actually leave, that is a good test to see if it is actually working and the business is system dependent, not necessarily people dependent.
Excellent responses. We've got 5 minutes to go before we reach 8 o'clock, and I want to make sure that I'm respectful of everyone's time. Can y'all do me a favor? Will you put a 3 in the chat if you felt like you've gotten something from today's conversation? Just drop a 3 in there. Do you feel like we've answered some questions? Do you feel like we've hit the mark? Now I will open the floor before we conclude this session. Does anyone have anything else? Leader Square information. I got you, Lori. Don't worry. But does anyone have any other commentary? Or you can unmute now, turn your camera on if you like. And if there's any other like pressing questions or any clarity to anything that we've said tonight. Anybody?
And if there's anything you want us to answer around quality and customer experience, because we're going to do that one next, you can put those questions in the chat and we'll go ahead and put them on our question doc list so that we know what y'all want to hear about, whether it's, great food or clean and safe environment, or if you want to hear more around like speed and accuracy, genuine hospitality, go ahead and put that in the chat and we'll put those questions in our question bank.
Most definitely. I want to just say, first of all, thank you guys so much for being patient with us in the beginning. We had something happen a little differently than normal, which that's what caused us to start a little later. Transparently, we were ready for you guys at the right time, but some other things happened. Like I said, we appreciate you guys spending the evening with us. Again, we enjoy talking about things of leadership and helping leaders advance their journeys, because we all know that Gen Z hospital, that's a big one, Abram. We all know that leading the organizations that we're tasked to lead can be hard sometimes. It's hard sometimes, and it's good to be able to connect with a group of leaders that are like-minded and understand some of the struggles that you might be going through. Honestly, I think that's what makes us different as a company. The TPE. The fact that you have 4 coaches that are dealing with the same exact things that you guys are dealing with day in and day out, from a guest standpoint to a team member standpoint, I think that's what sets us apart from any other coaching company that's out there. And so I know there was a question on the floor regarding Leader Square. If you go over to tpenow.com where you registered for this event, in the menu there should be an option for groups. And you'll see 2 groups there. You'll see one group called Leader Square. Again, as Javonna mentioned, that is our leadership community where myself and the other coaches here at TPE, we post exclusive content that we run across that we think is interesting and thought-provoking and that can help us get better. And you'll also see a second group here. I know you guys heard a lot from this individual, Neff, tonight. He anchors our TPE Espanol component of this business. We understand that a lot of our teams are ESL or English as a second language, and there may not be a whole lot of resources or coaching opportunities for those individuals out there. So he really anchors that area of the business for us. In fact, on May 19th will be the first Lead Better that will be facilitated in all Spanish. So if you guys have any members on your team that could benefit from that, that link is live right now on tpenow.com. And so those are all the general announcements that I have. We do have a special offer for those of you who are on the line, and you guys might want to extend a relationship with us beyond this this event. You're more than welcome to stay on. If you are not wanting to hear about that, we have concluded our meeting for today, and you guys are more than welcome to enjoy the rest of your evening. We appreciate you. We look forward to seeing you sign up in Leader Square, which is Leader Square is 100% free. And until next time, guys, peace. But again, if you want to continue the conversation, just hang on, and we'll have another special announcement for you. All right. I'm gonna let some of the individuals who are wanting to leave flesh out.
Well, while we're waiting for people to leave, people still on the line, is there any other like questions that you feel like you didn't get answered, or you want to give more or get more clarity on a topic around people, systems, and processes? You can either speak or you can put it in the chat, and I can probably email you about it if you would like for me to.
Okay.
I was really happy with those 3 questions, by the way. Those were really, really good, thought-provoking. I think those are things that we're all dealing with in the restaurant. So I think those let us hit on some of the main focuses in the current situation. I think that we're pretty much all in around the people area of the business.
Yep, for sure. All right. It seems to me that we've got Christian and let's see, Watson and Jen is still on the line here for us. So if y'all are comfortable, y'all can unmute if you want to. We can have just a conversation about what this is. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the TPE, the Pivot Experience, is a coaching business, a premium coaching business that is designed to help leaders pivot into the next season and phase in their leadership. As you guys, I think clearly know that all the coaches here are, we all work for the world's most caring company, that is Chick-fil-A. We have about, over 50 years of combined experience, and we want to extend that experience to you guys in the form of coaching. And because of the fact that you guys have participated in this Lead Better, we want to offer our monthly coaching packages, which is a $200 per month value, for free for the next 2 months if you choose to sign up within the next 3 days. And so what you can do is if you're interested in that offer, you'll drop your email in the chat right now, and then you'll get an email from us about being able to take advantage of that offer. You'll get paired with either myself, Javonna, Neff, or Ashley, based on what our initial phone call would be. And we'll get you a package of coaching together that'll help assess where you are currently and help you reach the goals that you want to reach. And so I see that we've got a couple of people who are interested in taking advantage of that. Thank you guys so very much, Christian. And can you type what your first name is in the chat? S Watson 2012 in the chat, so I can Sterling. Okay, thank you, Mr. Sterling. So I'll get some emails out to you guys, because we feel like our coaching is different from any other coaching business out there, because again, number one, just the sheer amount of experience that we have, and number two, the fact that we hold positions that give us to give us real-time insight on what you might be going on in the restaurant and what you might be dealing with in your organization. So I look forward to connecting with you all. Do you guys have any questions about the potential of working with us beyond this call? Christian or Sterling? All right. So if that's it, that is the offer. Again, look out for an email. No questions. Very good. Look out for an email from me between now and tomorrow to get you guys some more information on how to get signed up with us. And then we'll coordinate a 30-minute call where I'll get a chance to get to know you a little bit better. And then we'll get you paired up with the coach so you can start your journey into pivoting into your next. And until next time, guys, thank you guys so much for tuning in. Invite somebody to the next one. See you next time.